Hey, so today we're doing a oil change on a 2001 F-150. This truck is a two-wheel drive with a 4.2 liter engine, so it's only a little V6. This truck only has 40,000 kilometers on it, but it's about time for another one. It's actually overdue. So to do an oil change on these, you're gonna need, I think it's like just over 5 liters of 520. You can see that's 520 because it usually says it on the cap. I'm not doing a synthetic oil change on this one, but you can. And we've just got a Fram PH 3600 oil filter for this one, but oil filter and oil brands are kind of a preference. So pretty simple to do these things. You're gonna need a 13 mil wrench or a 13 mil ratchet and socket. Go underneath here and set up your oil drain pan to catch the oil. And scooch your way underneath. I don't have a hoist, so get that loose. Be prepared because this can make a mess. And there we go. Some pretty black oil coming out of there. I usually like to take the oil drain pan plug out of there before it gets too messy. And you kind of just let this drain. So usually when I got access to a hoist and I'm doing an oil change, I usually take a look at everything else under here. Just grab everything on the front end of it, make sure it's good. Check over all those things, check over the other fluids. We're okay for washer fluid and good for coolant from the looks of it. Just kind of give everything a quick once over while it's draining. So on these motors, the oil filter is in the front of the motor. Show you that in a second. So unfortunately, you kind of have to get the oil, let the oil drain, and then you come underneath here and then you can change that oil filter. It's nice and easy to get to, but still underneath, and it's on a spot where you can get that underneath as well. So you just kind of have to do one at a time. Not a big deal at all. Just something that be mindful of, but bring you guys back when that oil is done draining, and we'll go from there. So now most of that oil is done draining out. Still kind of coming out of there, but it's kind of cold out today, so I'm not going to worry about all of it. It's not going to hurt anything if there's a little bit of old oil and mix with the new stuff just fine. And just thread that back in. Get 13 mil back on here. And tighten it up. Doesn't need to be super crazy tight because of the way I'm working under here. It looks tighter than it is. And then you're just going to slide your oil container forward. And now you gotta get that filter off. I always recommend, I've got my rag up top, but wipe that plug. You don't want oil dripping, especially if it's not your vehicle. Uh-oh. Rag blew away. There it is. I always like to take a rag or some brake clean or something, wipe it off. And then up front, now you go ahead and you start doing that filter. Crawl underneath there. This can be messy sometimes, but pretty lucky with where this one's at. Oh, that's really tight. So I'll just put this down here. Get both hands on there. Just kind of let it start to drain. There's times I make a big mess. And then it's a good idea to have a rag with you in case it does start running down the filter like this one's doing. That way you can use the rag instead of getting your hands all wet. So now for the kind of controversial part. Depending on who you talk to, they'll tell you something different. Some people will tell you that you gotta pre-fill your filter. Some people will tell you to use the new oil instead of the old oil to lubricate the seal, but you just want to take some new or old oil, whatever you feel like, and just get that seal O-ring around there wet. Just put a little bit on, just use your finger or a rag if you don't want to get your finger dirty or something. That way it's not dry when you're twisting it on and tightening it up. It can mess up the sealing surface there. And you just tighten it on. When you're removing it, you might need an oil filter wrench, but when you're putting it on, you kind of just go till it's tight. Don't crank down on it too hard. If you crank down on it too hard, then it'll be too tight, and it'll just be a pain in the ass to get off next time. But you just take some brake clean or a rag or something and wipe off all the oil residue. So in here, pretty much that old oil and crap off there. Doesn't have to be perfect, but good. Now, curl up underneath. Don't forget your frying pan under there. Be careful, because you don't want to spill this. Make a big mess. Now that you're out of there, now you just gotta fill it up with oil. Like I said, I'm using 520 Quaker State non-synthetic. But oil, you can use whatever oil you feel like. Just make sure it's 520. I'm not worried about synthetic, but I know some people are. And then sometimes you could get away without using a funnel, but I always just recommend grabbing a funnel, make sure it's clean. And I think this thing takes just over 5 liters. So I got an opened one and an unopened one. And you just gotta fill it up with oil. So want to go nice and slow. Don't need to rush that much. If you're really trying to save money, you can sit here and wait for all that to come out, but I don't worry about it. And I save the empty bottles, because I'll put the old oil back in there, and then you got a safe way of disposing of it. So that was about 4 liters. So I'll dump in about another liter of oil, and I'll check that dipstick. So depending on who you talk to, they'll tell you something a little bit different on how to do this. Some people say go look up how much oil it's supposed to take and put that much oil in, but you never get all the oil out. So when you pull this out, you give it a wipe before you do anything, because sometimes oil will run down the dipstick tube. Just had it running, it'll be up there, and you take a look at it, and we're at the very bottom of the dipstick here. I don't know if that shows up. Not really. But we're at the very bottom of the dipstick, so we need quite a bit more oil. So I'll put another liter and a half in there. Let's check it again. I tend to check it more often than I actually need to, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. You don't want to overfill it, because it's a pain in the ass to get oil out when you filled it up too much. So there we go. Still need more. Good amount more. I didn't realize this thing takes this much oil. Check it again. There we go. We're just starting to approach the bottom. So this dipstick has 2 dots, and there's hash marks in between the 2 dots, and it says min and max. I like to fill it up right to the max mark, because telling you it's safe to do so is there, and then if you develop an oil leak or something goofy like that, or when your engine burns that little bit of oil, you're still good. We're about halfway up that, just a little bit past half, so dump a little bit more in. There we go, we're up to the top. So now that we're up to the top, I'm going to take the funnel out, put the oil cap back on it, take everything clear away. So I just took the 2 empty oil jugs and my 13 millimeter away. And then before you say that's good to go, because I don't pre-fill oil filters. Even if you do, I highly recommend starting it anyways. Start the truck up for a few seconds there, and check it again. Now that oil filter, you drain the oil out, that will have primed the system to check, prime the filter and everything. So again, once you have it running or whenever, the first one, you always want to just give it a wipe. This oil will run up the dipstick tube and it'll off. But it's trying to look good. I check it a few times when it's the last one here, because I just have a lot of anxiety. But yeah, right where we should be. We're at the max, so that's tight. You're good to go. Just like that. Now you've done an oil change, and well, in this case is in 2001 F-150, but I've also got a 2002 sitting over there. It'll be the same style. I think 97 to 03 will all be the same. They're all the 10th gen F-150s. So, but make sure you dispose of your oil and your oil filter correctly. But other than that, you're done. Doesn't take too long at all. And the biggest thing is just make sure that you're in the right spot on that oil dipstick, and you're good to go. So, see you guys later.